Hello and welcome to my dungeon. Today I want to show you the Dolmenwood RPG. In this Game Master's perspective, I will tell you what Dolmenwood is. I will briefly go over the rules. I will show you my highlights from all of the books. And then finally, I will tell you who I think this game is for and what other RPG books in general, you might want to use with this. If that interests you or you're interested in RPGs in general, please subscribe to my channel, like this video down below. There's a lot more where this came from. Not only reviews, but also GM advice, opinions, the general stuff. Under the video you also find affiliate links to drivethroughrpg for all the books I show in these videos and some of the books I wrote myself. If you follow them and buy anything, I get a small percentage that I will put towards more RPG stuff to present in videos. So thank you very much, and now let's get started with today's video. Dolmenwood is an old school RPG set in a fairy tale world. It began as just a setting that one guy created on his Patreon for old school essentials, but over the years it has grown, it has evolved, and after a very successful Kickstarter, it now came out as its very own RPG. It is still basic D&D is basic expert compatible, but Necrotic Gnome has removed all of the stuff that would need the old OGL license to function. So Dolmenwood is now fully open license. Wizards of the Coast can never revoke it. And better yet, there's an official open Dolmenwood license that's very generous, completely open. So anyone can use this game, use the rules, and create their own stuff with it in the truly open creative freedom that we loved about the old OGL. And that was sadly under attack a few years ago by Wizards of the Coast managers who didn't know what they were doing. Anyway, as a setting, Dolmenwood is very inspired by old fairy tales. Everything is magical and whimsical, though there are also darker themes to explore, just like in Grimm's fairy tales. It's a very good setting to introduce young players to playing old school role-playing games, but also for older players who are not looking for something serious, but something that feels cozy, whimsical, that they can just have a good time with. If a setting can't be dark and serious enough for you, then Dolmenwood might not be your thing. But if your goblins are just chaotic, mischievous rascals rather than plundering monsters, this might be just the setting for you. Let me briefly get into the rules and especially highlight some of the differences from basic D&D. As I said, Dolmenwood is based on basic D&D, so it will feel very familiar to anyone who's ever played D&D. You've got 6 ability scores. You also got save targets, hit points, ascending armor class, not Thaco, and attack bonus based on usually strength or dexterity, class and level, and so on. Notably, you've got special class skill targets, like this hunter, for example, has listen, search, survival, stalking, and tracking. It's D6 roll. You can see if the target is 5, it means 5 or higher. If the target is 6, it means 6 on D6. So this would be a success. And of course, there can be modifiers to the roll if the situation is beneficial or detrimental. Also, if you have to make any check if your character is able to do something that is determined by their skill, it's a D6 roll, against 4 or higher, plus your attribute modifier. So if this hunter were to do anything that is not covered by the skills, the GM might ask for a dexterity skill check, and then 2 or higher, because of the +2 bonus, would be a success. But also, if the situation demands, it's very random if you succeed or not, and your ability has only very little to do with it, the GM might call for a d20 roll +2. So let's say it's 12 or higher on a d20 with dexterity bonus. So this would be a miss. The player's book contains all the information that a player might need, so you can give it out without worrying about spoilers, but there's more than a player must need. There's a lot of extra rules, exploration rules, wilderness survival rules, and so on. But we are starting with rolling ability scores. It's 3d6 down the line, or what other method for generating ability scores you prefer. And then you choose race and class separately. The races are called Kindred here. We've got a number of mortal races: humans, Briggles, kind of goat men, Mosslings that are like hobbits, if hobbits would also grow plants in their skin and compost very fast when they die. Then we've got characters of fairy origin. These don't die of age, they die of violent, but not of old age, so in that sense they are immortal. That would be elves and Grimalkin, both kindred who hail from the realm of fairy. And finally we got the demi-fae, fae who have lived in the mortal world for so long that they have become mortal, even though their lifespan is still measured in the centuries. That would be the Woodgrus, a kind of bad people, a bit like fun-loving goblins. And apart from the bare necessities for each kindred, you've got what they look like. Many extra tables to roll on to flesh out your character a bit. Elves in Dolmenwood are not like Tolkien elves, they are very fairy-like, creatures of innate magic. And as such, they might appear strange to humans. Grimalkin are like the Puss in Boots and that one smiling cat from Alice in Wonderland rolled into one. So they possess some innate magic and shape-shifting ability. They can change into a normal cat or into a wilder shape, a combat shape, that makes them near invisible apart from a leering grin and fear standing electrified on end. Humans were the most numerous in many tales of the Dolmenwood and the land around, supposedly, get some special racial abilities too, like decisiveness, the leadership ability, that means they can have one more retainer than other kindred, and spirited, they are quick to learn and gain plus 10% bonus experience points. So might be the boring choice, but not a bad choice. Classes are similar to basic D&D and advanced Dungeons & Dragons, though not identical. You've got bards who have some skill abilities, some magical abilities, but not straight up spell levels and spell lists. Clerics, who are just like clerics in basic D&D, though all of the holy orders within the Dolmenwood are listed here with some modifications they give you. So if you create a cleric, you are part of the church and the holy order and have your place in the world, in the setting. We've got the enchanter, who use fairy magic, fairy runes and glamours, which is again not like spell levels, it's its own thing. The basic fighter with the biggest strength being you can use all weapons and all armor, but you also get some combat talents that you can learn as you level up to give you something a bit more special. which, as someone who's currently playing a old school Essentials fighter, I can appreciate. Old school Essential fighters get no special abilities at all. If they don't find magical weapons or gear that gives them something special to do, then you are only rolling attacks. The Friar, which I love, is a holy spellcaster. They are like the cleric in that regard, but they are specialized spellcasters. They don't wear heavy armor, they don't use heavy weapons. Instead, they get spells at level 1s and more spell slots in general. You also get the special ability that you can use a culinary implement like a frying pan, a cured sausage, or even a ham shank as a melee weapon doing 1d4 damage. And I love this class as an alternative to the Crusader type cleric. You have this wandering monk type cleric that is a Western monk, not an Eastern Kung Fu monk. This is the Brother Tuck type from Robin Hood. I love this class. The Hunter, which is like a ranger without any magical abilities, very good in the wilderness. Powerful, if not very durable fighter. They can use all weapons but not all armor. The Knight, which is a much more specialized version of the fighter. They can only use all melee weapons. They are specialized in horsemanship and monster slaying, but they must follow a chivalric code, and they probably belong to one of the noble houses, once again placing them within the world. We've got the basic magic user. This is the one with spell books, spell slots, and spell scrolls. The thief with their thief skills that have d6 chances for all of these skills, and you can use a optional rule for customized thieving skills, meaning you can learn these skills as you want as you level up, rather than using this fixed table. Additionally to the normal magic spells with spell slots and so on, enchanters and characters of Fey origin can learn runes and glamours that have spell-like effects and can only be used like once a day or once a week, once a year, once in the entire life of the character, depending on how powerful they are. Glamours are like minor illusions and meddling with the mind of the mortals, while runes can have more physical and more powerful magical effects. Within the equipment, services, and animals, you find everything an adventurer in Dolmenwood might need, but we also get an entire page with hounds, with races of dogs you might encounter in Dolmenwood, like the Sealy dog, tall silver-furred hounds with delicate bone structure and long legs suited for running. Sealy dog's eyes are bright pink and they are said to be of fairy origin. Or the complete opposite, the Pisker, stocky short-legged dogs with lustrous red fur, laurel tongues and soft pudgy bellies. Known for their frisky, boisterous temperament and obnoxious yapping. Commonly kept by the people of Brickwood who fear the presence of fairies, because these hounds can detect fairies. And this is one of the things I love about Dolmenwood. Rather than giving us just one dog, maybe two dogs, and be done with it, we get an entire double page with many flavorful, much different breeds of dogs that might become the companion of your adventuring group, that are very useful, very flavorful, and fit and flesh out the setting of Dolmenwood so much. Lodgings and food. This might have been just a small table, but instead we get a list of staple foods, of dishes, of local specialties that once again do not add anything mechanically in this case, but there is so much background information, so much rich lore and flavor. And you can use this in your adventure preparation. If the characters come to a table, you might have rolled up what's the dish of the day, what are they serving, and this will foster the atmosphere of the tavern, make it more specific, more special. Entire double page of just beverages, beers, ciders, specialized beverages, spirits, teas, wines. And these also all have an effect, like the Barrel Blaster, robust ale, streaked black and white, with rich iron-like flavor, effect belching and goggling. Or spirits, Bard's Cordial, a frothy orange spirit that tastes of malted rye, effect brings on a state of unexpected poetry. Once again, so much fluff and flavor in here. Oh, there's more. Entire double page just of pipe leaf. Tolkien would be proud. Common fungi and herbs. Just so much. And the player's rules are complete with an explanation of how the game is actually played. This is a really good explanation of the old school way of playing the game. Very easy to read, very easy to understand, and it's complete with advice on how you could play it, preparing an adventure, having a caller, chronicler, mapper, bringing enough resources, focusing on the objective. Got the core rules, then the more specialized rules, stealth, swimming, traps, wandering monsters, rules for overland travel, rules for camping, what you could do in a settlement, downtime actions, the dungeon crawling procedures, the encounter procedures with surprise and initiative. By the way, initiative is a D6 roll, one for the group, one for the NPCs. Higher die roll goes first. If you've got the same, you go at the same time. And this is pretty much the rule I use whenever I'm playing D&D. And I roll every round to give the encounter a bit more of a dynamic. So for me, this is very intuitive. It's how I like to play old school D&D. Special combat rules, combat situations like attacking with 2 weapons, fighting in water, switching weapon, unarmed attacks. Notably, there's an optional death door rule. Instead of just dying at 0 hit points, you could rule that a character at death door is unconscious and will die without magical aid. Each round there's a 2 in 6 chance of the character dying. So there is a chance of saving a downed character, but it is not easy and it is also not without cost. Characters brought back from death door suffer a permanent loss of 1 point from a random ability score. I quite like this rule because dying at 0 hit points is very punishing and prevents scenes where you might rush in and try to save a downed character. I personally feel that standard rule is too punishing. It makes characters' life feel cheap. And I prefer this rule. This is not super heroic and still means you don't want to be reduced to 0 hit points, but you can be saved by the group. And then there are the appendices that are also very interesting. The calendar of Dolmenwood got its very own calendar with months of the year, moonside, names of the days of the weeks, feasts, and so on. And you can have optionally moon signs for the characters that might give them some special situational bonuses depending on which moon they were born. And then there's just stuff that characters that come from Dolmenwood would know, like the most important noble houses. They would know about the most common religion within the wood. Finally, we got optionally kindred, meaning race, as class. So rather than having the Braggle race, you have the Braggle class. I guess somewhere along here I am. And if not, that is a huge table of random names you can just pick to name an NPC. That everything is very specific to the Dolmenwood setting and very flavorful is continued in the monster book. That gives you the monster an alphabetical order, and each monster gets an entire page. So you not only get the name and illustration, the stat block, all of the special abilities, but also where you might encounter it, what the monster might be like, where you might find it, and these encounters and layers can be used to prepare adventures, to get ideas, of course, or on the fly if you have to. But there also might be something very specific to the monster, like mutations for the Fomorian, quixotic quests for the fairy horse, blessings from the fairy horse. It's all, as I said, very flavorful and fitting within the setting. And that even translates to the common animals. Or you'd think more normal animals you could just put in a table. Everyone knows what an ant is like, what a bat is like, and so forth. Oh, not so in Dolmenwood. In here, a mundane animal can mean something like a gelatinous ape. Hairless, brightly colored, transparent apes, 3 feet tall, that creep through the trees and undergrowth. Gelatinous apes are gentle natures and show great kindness to lost travelers. Their jelly-like flesh is sweet and chewy. Or the hedgehog. Black-spined, flea-ridden hedgehogs with long pink tongues that they use to catch insects creep out of the undergrowth to sleep on the heads of campers, infesting them with fleas and licking their ear holes with their probing tongues. Flee when discovered. That's what you should do when you discover them, to avoid the fleas. Well, it is also what the hedgehog will do when you wake up and notice them. And these are considered normal, mundane animals within the Dolmenwood. That is how infused with fairy magic, with fairy tale logic, this whole setting is. For each monster, you also get a number of rumors that you might use for something that the players have heard or are hearing about the monsters they are facing. And lastly, you got a double page with rules on how you create your own monsters. Third book within the trio of base Dolmenwood books is not the GM's guide, this is the campaign book. This describes you how to run a game, a campaign within the Dolmenwood setting, but it doesn't give you the rules to create your own setting and expand on the setting beyond the Dolmenwood. This is, again, very specific to this setting, this campaign world, this woodland. And it is a beast. In the inside cover, we got the double-page hex map of the Dolmenwood, and later in the book you find description for all of these hexes. So this is for someone who just likes to run adventures within an existing setting. No matter where your party is within the wood, no matter where they are going, you can just flip onto the description of the hex and there will be something interesting there to be discovered. And even normal hexes, like here, this green patch, 1107. Even in a seemingly boring, empty, green hex like 1107, there's a worm cave, chasm, lair, the encounter with the worm's horde. Even in a hex like that, there's something interesting to be found. There's just so much of it. It's like half of the book. So much creativity in here. So many great ideas. But before that, there are the descriptions of the history, of the general geography and the regions, of the ferry roads, the dolmens, the fairy nobles and their dominions, all of the factions of interest, the gods. And for campaign, maybe most interesting are the factions and powers that be there, that will push the conflict forward as they are furthering their own interests. And the party might swear allegiance to one of these factions and powers or be caught up in this play of power. There's Atanue, the nine-legged chaos godling, the Neck Lord, which is quite a terrible beast. Lots of body horror here. If you're focusing your campaign on Atanue and their doings, then it can actually become quite dark and disturbing. There might also be the cruel, cold prince of Fairy, or the mysterious and xenophobic order of the Droon, who wants the woodlands for themselves. The human nobility and their petty squabbles. The Longhorn nobility and their petty squabbles. The Puritane Church and their holy shrines and churches and quests and petty squabbles. The witches of the wood and their mysterious enclaves and magical schemes. There's even maybe a bit too many factions for a simple campaign, so I would pick 3 of them that the campaign focuses on, or better yet, I don't have to pick. If I run this as a sandbox, I can just see what happens, what factions my characters align with, who are they opposing, and then run with it and make those factions the most important of the campaign. Or it would just become the most important of the campaign if the players are focusing on that. And stuff like that is explained in Chapter 3, How to Run the Campaign. It explains the different campaign styles, the player-driven sandbox style, the plot-driven narrative style, anything in between, the different groups of players you might have, how you can customize the tone of the campaign to fit your preferences and that of your players, the themes you might touch upon in the campaign. General, what is your role as a referee? How you can describe the world and the monsters and the NPCs. How you can design your own adventures. How you can design dungeons. How you are awarding XP and treasure for that matter. Rules for exploring the wild, the weather, getting lost, random encounters by regions, lots of them. Fishing, and not even fishing is a mundane tasks in the Dolmenwood. Foraging, hunting, descriptions of every major settlement. This is a very thoroughly described setting. Just so much of it. So much that you can just take and use and don't have to create yourself. So this is very much for someone who doesn't want a blank world that they can populate on their own. I mean, you could ignore all of this and populate the Dolmenwood however you see fit. You could just milk it for inspiration, but there is comfort in having all of this prepared. This makes it easy to look up information instead of coming up with it and preparing your games fast, or even to look up things on the fly as you are running the game. And in the back we find part 7, treasures and oddments, all of the stuff that you might find in the dungeons after the encounter. The cool magic items, amulets, talismans, magical armors, so on, so on. Once again, so much. So flavorful. So setting specific. I'm saying that a lot in this video. But there is just a lot in these books. I think you are getting it. This is just a very rich, flavorful, and complete setting. Very well laid out, making it easy to find what you're looking for, making it easy to prepare and run adventures within the Dolmenwood campaign setting. So, what other books might you want to use with it? While editing, I noticed that I didn't mention some of the most obvious recommendations. That would be the official adventures for Dolmenwood, starting with Winter's Daughter. Then we've got Imelda's Song, The Ruined Abbey of St. Cladwyn, and The Fungus That Came to Blackswell. I have only GM'd Winter's Daughter yet, but this is easily one of the best adventures that I have ever run. It's super well laid out and easy to use, and it transports that old fairy tale magic that Dolmenwood is all about very well. And then there's this turn of events in probably the middle of the adventure, maybe towards the last third, when the group actually goes into fairy and meets a fairy princess, the Winter's Daughter, in person. Well, the complete tone of the adventure and the goals of the adventures just shift. Wonderfully well done, really good introductory adventure for new players. I can't recommend this one enough. And I'm just hoping that the rest will be of similar quality. What I can say is that they are well integrated into the Dolmenwood campaign setting. These locations and the rumors about what is happening there is already presented in the campaign book and then expanded upon in the adventures. A Dungeon Master's Guide that lets you create more world, more hexes to explore, more kingdoms, more plot hooks, and so on, to expand on the Dolmenwood campaign setting, might be a nice addition. That could be the AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide, that is very complete. Forbidden Lands has great generators. Or maybe Worlds Without Numbers for its abundance of random tables. I also find that the stuff that the Merry Mushmen put out fit from their tone very well within Dolmenwood. If you need a few more monsters, the Folklore Bestiary has you covered. If you're looking for more adventures, both the Nightmare Over Ragged Hollow and the horrendous Hounds of Henenbow fit tonal-wise very well within Dolmenwood. And if you change just a few names of gods and saints around, maybe put a few of the player races in there, Moskin, Breggles, elves and stuff, then they fit right in somewhere within Dolmenwood. Also, Nightmare Ragged Hollow shows how you could adjust the Dolmenwood setting in feel to be a bit more mundane on the player side. If you don't like the idea of your players running around as giant cats or as bad people, then maybe just restrict player races to just humans and have all of the magical, fantastical kin and creatures out there in the woods as a contrast to the mundane home that the players come from and they are familiar with. So is this for. Dolmenwood is a great campaign setting if you are either experienced with the old school playstyle and just want this fairy tale-like setting to explore, to run adventures with minimal pre-prep because it's all already prepared within this giant book and you just want to run it, then this is for you. This is very comfortable to run with. It is a great setting to introduce young players to old school gaming. Just tone down some of the darker aspects. Not completely, mind you. Keep the monsters scary, keep it interesting. But focus on the magical wonder, the whimsical. Is perfect RPG for children. Or maybe if you have a group of players that have long outgrown their teenage years in their dark and angsty phase and just want to have a good time. Possibly even new players. I'm running this for a group of my work colleagues who've never played RPGs before, and they had a blast running through Winter's Daughter. For those players, it's also a great setting. So yeah, Dolmenwood. Great setting for old school play. Great player's book too, great monster book, player's book and the classes, and there might be some of my favorite interpretation of the BX rule set. Check it out if you don't already have. You'll find links in the video description down below. For now, I bid thee farewell, dreamers. May the Traveler watch over you, until we shall meet again.